tax, we have, at the same time, the creeping in of the culture of bonuses at the top. We've done a research recently on the question of Chief Fire Officers' pay. Over the 5 years up to 2009, Chief Fire Officers in the UK Fire and Rescue Service saw their pay increase by 27.5%. At the same time that those the pay rates on the grey book, the rates that we negotiate for, have increased by about 12.5%. So more than twice the increases going to those at the very top, and they are being rewarded. Make no bones about it, they're being rewarded by their employers, the local politicians, for the more jobs they cut, the bigger bonuses they get. That's the agenda that's creeping into the Fire and Rescue Service. We've already seen our pay and our pensions attacked. We've already seen attacks on emergency cover in the Fire and Rescue Service. We've got disputes and battles up and down the country about duty systems, where our members are being asked to work more unfavourable duty system. We have a dispute in London emerging just at this time, and the agenda for the public is that you will see a reduction in fire cover, the number of firefighters available during the night, for example. Their argument is there are less fires at night, therefore you have less firefighters at night. It's a crazy logic, because the truth is if you have a fire, you need exactly the same number of firefighters and fire engines, whether it takes place at 3 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But that's the sort of private sector thinking that is creeping into the Fire and Rescue Service. We also face threats to our right to strike. We have, in London, for example, a private company that has been advised by a number of senior retired ex-fire managers who've got very comfortable pensions and now have gone off to work for this leeching firm. AssetCo, its name is. AssetCo already own all the fire engines that you'll see on the streets of London. They even own the uniforms that you'll see firefighters fighting their fires in, and AssetCo have now gone one step further, because they've got a contract now with the London Fire Brigade to provide what they call an emergency fire service. Well, I thought that was the fire service that I joined back in 1983, but these people know what they're creating is a privatised, strike-breaking fire service. And they're training people in Lincolnshire that in the event of various situations, and they quote bird flu epidemics and so on, and we know what it's really about, it's about strike action, that in the event of strike action they will bring these people in to provide a so-called emergency fire and rescue service to break our strike. And at the same time now, that firm, AssetCo, are now got their eyes on the training venue of the London Fire Brigade, and we face a very serious probability and likelihood of spreading privatisation in the Fire and Rescue Service. Those are the sort of attacks that we already face, and I have to say I expect them to get worse. So one of the things that our movement has to do is explain very clearly that we believe there is an alternative. It is not inevitable that our public services have to be slashed to pieces. It is not inevitable. There are alternative policies that could be pursued. We have to say, and I don't need to say it probably in this audience, but the Tax Justice Network, for example, have exposed that there is 125 billion pounds of tax avoided by the richest and the biggest corporations in the United Kingdom today. There's some money which, if the government put the resources in to raising that tax, instead of closing tax offices, to put people on to closing down those loopholes where resources could be found, not to cut our public services, but to invest in them and to improve them generally for all of us. Military expenditure. We could scrap the waste on Trident and scrap the waste on illegal and unlawful wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Simply to return to the levels of taxation that we had at the start of the New Labour era would actually raise tens of billions of pounds for our public services and for welfare. But I think we need to go a step further. We need to start saying that actually this society is a crisis-ridden society. We've been told throughout history by the ruling class, throughout the history of capitalism, that they can find ways of avoiding the ups and downs of capitalism, that we just need to regulate a bit more or change the law slightly, and that we'll be able to avoid those sorts of crises. Because we need to be clear, the crisis is not a crisis of a few bad apples in the City of London. It is a crisis of the system. Those people are about profit maximising, and the system itself is inherently unstable. And we need to argue that if this system cannot deliver decent living standards, decent welfare for our people, then we'll find an alternative system that will put in its place. I think we need We need to be ready to fight. We need to ensure that we are not picked off one by one. We need to ensure that those engaged in struggle are not alone, and that we build the greatest possible cooperation and collaboration between different groups of workers. And that's why I welcome the National Shop Stewards Network and the work that has already been implemented and developed. There are still 7 million or so trade unionists in this country, and we need to demand of the trade union movement officially that it does put itself at the head of a movement. I accept completely the need for people to organise independently of the official movement, independently of the TUC, but we pay our contributions to the TUC, we pay our affiliation fees to the TUC, and I and others made a call at the TUC General Council. The TUC should organise a major national event, a major national demonstration to challenge the cuts agenda. And I don't mean one where we get the leaflet at the last minute. I mean one that is planned for and built for properly over a period of time, where we have the time to go into our workplaces to convince people and say we're building a genuine movement that will challenge this government, challenge the cuts agenda, and that will therefore put ourselves at the head, not just of those people who are in trade unions currently, but all of those people in workplaces where trade unions have been driven out over the past 20 or 30 years, and at the head of our communities who are against the cuts to their schools or their hospitals or their welfare services or whatever. If the movement organised on that basis, we could really see a huge struggle that would really challenge this government and place different ideas on the agenda. And we're not talking about just in Britain. We need also to build alliances and links with workers across the world. We've seen the struggles that are unfolding in Greece, in Spain and elsewhere. And this cannot be a problem that just faces British workers alone. It's an international crisis, and we need to build an international solution to it. We will be told, no doubt, that there is no alternative. The only alternative is to tighten our belts and that we're supposedly all in it together. Well, we know what a lot of nonsense that is. We're not in it together. Working people, we're in it. We're facing the crunch of this in Britain and across the rest of the world. So our challenge that we face, comrades, is that when they say there is no alternative, we say we will build our own alternative. That's the challenge that we face. Thank you very much.